Michael stood in his kitchen on New Year's Day morning, coffee in hand, looking at a piece of paper he taped to his refrigerator. Savings balance, $0. Age 31. Years saving, 0. He'd written it the night before during a moment of brutal honesty. 31 years old with a $58,000 salary as a graphic designer, and he'd never saved a single dollar in his entire adult life. Every year ended the same way. Checking account near zero, credit card balances higher than they should be, living paycheck to paycheck despite making decent money. The pattern had continued for 13 years since starting work. His younger brother had just bought a house with his wife. When Michael congratulated them, his brother casually mentioned, "We had to save for 3 years for the down payment, $22,000. Michael had smiled and said, "That's amazing," while internally dying because he couldn't save $22. That conversation was the catalyst. Michael wasn't broke, he made decent money. He wasn't irresponsible, he paid his bills on time. He just had zero savings discipline. Money came in, money went out, nothing remained. He grabbed a calculator and did simple math. $10,000 divided by 12 months equals $833 per month. If he could save that consistently for 1 year, he'd have a real emergency fund for the first time in his life. Michael had tried saving before and always failed within weeks. This time needed to be different. He needed a system that didn't rely on willpower, because willpower had failed him for 13 years. He opened his laptop and typed into a document, Project 10,000, $0 to $10,000 saved in 12 months. Start date, January 1st. End date, December 31st. No excuses, no exceptions. Michael's first step was diagnosing why 13 years of employment had produced zero savings. He spent New Year's Day afternoon conducting a financial autopsy of the previous year. He downloaded 12 months of bank and credit card statements and categorized every transaction. The results were shocking but not surprising. Annual income after taxes, $42,000. Annual expenses, $41,873. Annual savings, $127, which had been spent on an emergency car repair in November, returning him to zero. The problem wasn't income. $42,000 annually was enough to save. The problem was lifestyle inflation and unconscious spending. Michael's spending fell into 3 categories: essentials that couldn't be reduced, rent, utilities, car, insurance $24,000 annually, necessary but optimizable, food, gas, phone $9,600 annually, completely discretionary and often unconscious, restaurants, bars, entertainment, subscriptions, impulse purchases $8,273 annually. That third category was the bleeding wound, nearly 20% of his after-tax income vanishing into things he barely remembered buying or doing. But even optimizing that completely would only free up $8,000, not the $10,000 he needed to save. Michael needed both expense reduction and income increase. He created a 3-part strategy. Part 1, automate savings before money could be spent. Part 2, reduce discretionary spending by 50% through conscious systems. Part 3, generate $4,000 in supplemental income over 12 months through side work. If he executed all 3, the math worked. Automate $600 monthly equals $7,200 annually. Reduce discretionary by $4,136 annually equals $345 monthly freed up. Side income of $4,000 equals $333 monthly average. Total monthly capacity, $1,278 saved monthly, exceeding the $833 needed for $10,000 annual target. The plan was solid mathematically. The challenge was execution for 12 consecutive months without failure. On January 2nd, Michael implemented the automation system that would become the foundation of his success. He'd learned from past failures that relying on willpower to manually transfer money to savings each month failed because life always presented reasons to skip that month. This time, money would disappear before he could spend it. He set up a separate high-yield savings account at a different bank, physically and psychologically separated from his checking account. He scheduled an automatic transfer of $600 to occur every payday. He was paid biweekly, so $300 per paycheck. The transfer was scheduled for the same day his paycheck deposited, before bills, before anything. The savings account debit card was locked in a drawer. He removed it from his phone's wallet. He set up the account to require two-factor authentication for any withdrawals, creating friction for impulsive access. The psychology was critical. If he couldn't see the money easily, he couldn't spend it impulsively. Out of sight meant out of mind. For the first 2 weeks, Michael felt genuine anxiety seeing his checking account balance lower than usual after the automatic savings transfer. His brain screamed, "You can't afford this," but he'd anticipated this reaction. He'd calculated his actual expenses and knew $600 saved still left enough for essentials. The anxiety was psychological, not mathematical. By week 3, he stopped checking his checking account obsessively. By week 4, he'd adjusted to the new normal. His available money was simply $600 less than before, and he budgeted accordingly. On January 31st, Michael checked his savings account for the first time since January 2nd. Balance, $600. 1 month down, 11 to go. The automation had worked. He'd saved $600 without a single moment of willpower or conscious decision. The money had simply disappeared from accessible funds and reappeared in protected savings. This was the system breakthrough. Don't fight human psychology with willpower. Design systems that work despite human psychology. Part 2 of Michael's strategy, cutting discretionary spending by 50%, required conscious behavioral changes he'd always failed at before. But this time he had a different approach. Instead of vague commitments to spend less, he implemented specific system constraints that removed decisions. Constraint 1. Unsubscribe from all marketing emails and unfollow all brands on social media. If he didn't see products advertised, he couldn't impulse purchase them. Result: January impulse online purchases dropped from average $230 monthly to $43. Constraint 2. Delete all saved payment methods from websites and remove credit cards from phone wallet. Require manual entry of card numbers for every purchase, creating friction. Result: abandon 70% of would-be impulse purchases when friction revealed they weren't actually needed. Constraint 3. Implement 48-hour rule for any non-essential purchase over $50. Add to cart but wait 2 days before buying. Result: 85% of delayed purchases were never completed, the desire faded. Constraint 4. Meal planning Sunday evenings with groceries bought once weekly, eliminating daily food decisions that led to expensive takeout. Result: food spending dropped from $800 monthly to $350 monthly, $450 monthly saved. Constraint 5. Replace paid entertainment with free alternatives. Library instead of bookstores, free streaming services instead of multiple subscriptions, hiking instead of expensive activities. Result: entertainment spending dropped from $300 monthly to $75 monthly, $225 monthly saved. Constraint 6. 1 alcohol/dining out event per week maximum instead of 3 to 4. Preload social plans instead of spontaneous expensive outings. Result: bars and restaurants dropped from $600 monthly to $200 monthly, $400 monthly saved. Total monthly discretionary reduction, $1,118. He targeted $345 monthly but achieved more than triple that through systematic constraints rather than willpower-based restriction. By end of January, Michael had saved $600 through automation plus roughly $1,100 through spending reduction. Month 1 total, $1,700 saved, double his monthly target. If he maintained this pace, he'd hit $10,000 by July. But Michael knew better than to assume January's momentum would continue. New habits often collapsed by month 3. He needed to sustain this for 11 more months. Part 3 of Michael's strategy, generating $4,000 supplemental income annually, required identifying side work compatible with his full-time graphic design job. He had a skill advantage, professional design capabilities, but he'd never freelanced because he thought it would be complicated and time-consuming. In reality, he needed just $333 monthly average, roughly 15 to 20 hours of work at $15 to $25 per hour. Michael created a simple Fiverr profile offering logo design, social media graphics, and basic brand identity work. He priced aggressively low initially to build reviews. Logo design $150, social media graphics $50 for 5 posts, basic brand package $200. Within 2 weeks, he'd landed his first 3 clients from Fiverr. Total revenue, $350 for approximately 12 hours of evening work. His design day rate at his job was effectively $29 per hour. His freelance rate was $29 per hour, but the freelance hours were flexible and supplemental. By month 2, Michael had refined his freelance approach. He identified his most profitable service, logo design at $150 for roughly 4 hours work, $37.50 per hour effective rate. He focused exclusively on logo work, declining social media graphics and other lower margin services. He raised his logo price from $150 to $250 after getting 10 5-star reviews. Quality stayed identical. Volume stayed steady. Revenue per project increased 67%. February freelance income, $780 from 4 logo projects across 12 hours of work, $65 per hour effective rate through specialization and pricing power. March, $920. April, $840. May, $1,050. By June, Michael had generated $4,590 from freelance work across 6 months, already exceeding his 12-month target of $4,000 with 6 months remaining. The supplemental income wasn't just hitting his savings target. It was dramatically exceeding it while taking only 10 to 15 hours monthly. Michael had learned something crucial. His primary job paid well but didn't utilize his full earning potential. The same skills that generated $29 hourly at his job generated $65 hourly freelance due to higher pricing power when working directly with clients versus through an employer. The skill wasn't the limitation, the employment structure was. By month 6, halfway through his year-long challenge, Michael had saved $8,347. He was 83% to his $10,000 goal at the 50% time mark. The compound effect of all 3 strategies was working beyond projections. But month 6 also brought the first real test. His car's transmission failed. Repair estimate, $2,800. Old Michael would have put this on a credit card and paid it off slowly over months, accumulating interest. New Michael faced a different decision. Drain nearly 30% of his accumulated savings for the repair, or finance it and stay on track toward $10,000. Michael chose to pay cash for the repair using his emergency fund, because that's exactly what an emergency fund was for. His savings dropped from $8,347 to $5,547. The psychological impact was brutal. 6 months of disciplined work had built $8,000, and 35% evaporated in one afternoon. He felt like he'd failed despite knowing intellectually he'd succeeded. This was the exact scenario emergency funds were built for. But the emotional reality was harder than the logical reality. Michael spent 2 days grieving the lost progress. Then he recalculated. 6 months remaining in the year, 5,547 saved. Target of 10,000 equals 4,453 needed. That was $742 monthly for 6 months, lower than the 1,278 he'd been averaging. The transmission crisis, while painful, hadn't derailed the goal. It had simply tested whether his emergency fund worked. It worked. He'd absorbed a major unexpected expense without debt, without panic, without financial collapse. By month 7, Michael had rebuilt his savings to $6,891. By month 8, $8,212. He'd recovered from the transmission hit and was back on track toward $10,000 by December 31st. The crisis had taught him the real value of savings wasn't just the number, it was the security. When the transmission failed, he'd felt stress about the repair but zero financial panic. He had the money. He could fix the problem immediately. That feeling of security was worth more than the dollars themselves. Months 9 through 11 became Michael's final sprint. He'd proven the system worked. He'd weathered a major emergency without debt. Now he wanted to finish strong and ideally exceed his $10,000 target. He made strategic adjustments to maximize the final quarter. He increased his automated savings from $600 monthly to $800 monthly. His freelance income had stabilized at $900 to $1,000 monthly, creating room for higher automated savings. He took on a seasonal November-December project at his day job that included overtime pay, generated an additional $1,200 across 2 months. He sold items he no longer needed on Facebook Marketplace, generated $380 that went directly to savings. He temporarily cut his discretionary spending even further during November and December, skipped holiday gift exchanges with extended family, explaining he was prioritizing his financial goals over presents. Everyone understood. By December 1st, Michael's savings balance stood at $9,723, 29 days to hit $10,000. He needed $277 more. He completed one final freelance logo project in mid-December for $300. On December 20th, 11 days before his deadline, Michael transferred the $300 project payment to his savings account. Final balance, $10,023. Michael had exceeded his goal 11 days early. He'd gone from zero savings at age 31 to $10,023 saved in 354 days through automated systems, spending constraints, and supplemental income. But more meaningful than hitting the number was sustaining the system for nearly a full year. Michael had tried and failed to save for 13 years. This time he'd succeeded because he'd replaced willpower with systems, vague intentions with specific constraints, and manual saving with automation. The victory wasn't the $10,000. It was the proven system that could generate $10,000 yearly indefinitely. If he maintained these habits, he'd have $20,000 saved by next December, $30,000 the year after. The compound effect worked for money just like it worked for skills and habits. On December 31st, the original deadline, Michael sat down to document everything he'd learned during his year-long journey from zero to $10,000 saved. The financial transformation was obvious. Negative $0 saved at 31 years old to $10,023 saved at 32. But the psychological and systemic insights were more valuable than the money. Insight 1: automation defeats willpower every time. Michael had failed to save for 13 years relying on willpower to manually transfer money monthly. $600 automatically disappeared every paycheck for 12 months without a single willpower decision required. The system succeeded where motivation had always failed. Insight 2: friction works bidirectionally. Making saving automatic removed friction from saving. Making spending manual by deleting payment methods and requiring card entry added friction to spending. Both changes leveraged psychology instead of fighting it. Insight 3: constraints create freedom paradoxically. Reducing choices through specific rules, 48-hour purchase delay, 1 alcohol outing weekly, Sunday meal planning, felt restrictive initially but created freedom from constant decision fatigue and impulsive regret. Insight 4: skills are undermonetized in employment. Michael's design skills generated $29 hourly through his job, but $65 hourly through direct freelance clients. The employment structure, not his ability, limited his earning potential. Side income wasn't about working more, it was about monetizing existing skills more effectively. Insight 5: emergency funds buy peace more than they solve emergencies. When the transmission failed, Michael paid cash without panic. The $2,800 repair was handled immediately. The psychological relief of having money available was worth more than the money itself. He'd paid for peace. Insight 6: comparison can be catalyst instead of poison. His brother's house down payment revelation could have been demoralizing. Instead, Michael used it as motivation, proof that saving was possible and that he was behind. Comparison became fuel instead of excuse. Insight 7: goals need systems, not motivation. Save Money had failed for 13 years. Automate $600 monthly, cut discretionary 50%, generate $333 monthly supplemental, succeeded because it was systematic and measurable. Michael wrote all 7 insights in a document he titled, How I Finally Saved After 13 Years of Failure, a system for people who can't save. He posted it in a financial independence forum. Within 24 hours, it had been viewed 3,000 times and received 200 comments asking questions and sharing similar struggles. 6 months after completing his year-long savings challenge, Michael's life had continued transforming. He'd maintained all 3 systems: automation, spending constraints, freelance income, and his savings had grown to $16,800. The $10,000 emergency fund remained untouched. The additional $6,800 was beginning to work for him through investments. Michael had opened a Roth IRA and was contributing $400 monthly. He'd started a taxable brokerage account, investing an additional $300 monthly in index funds. His money was beginning to compound through market returns, not just accumulation. But the most significant change was psychological. Michael no longer felt financially fragile. When unexpected expenses appeared, medical bill, home repair, whatever, he felt momentary annoyance but zero panic. He had the money. Problems could be solved immediately without debt, without crisis, without the stomach-dropping anxiety he'd lived with for 13 years. His relationship with money had fundamentally changed. Before, money was something that disappeared mysteriously, causing constant low-level stress. After, money was something he controlled through systems, creating constant low-level security. The shift wasn't about having $10,000. It was about knowing he could systematically generate $10,000 whenever needed. He'd proven it once. He could repeat it infinitely. Michael also continued helping others through his documented system. He'd received over 500 messages from people trying his approach. Many were succeeding. Month 3, 2,600 saved using your automation method. I've never saved before, and I just hit $5,000. Your 7 insights changed how I think about money completely. A few people asked if Michael would coach them one-on-one. He started offering monthly accountability calls for $50 where he'd review their systems, identify friction points, and troubleshoot barriers. The coaching generated another $200 to $300 monthly while helping people implement savings systems. 1 year after his original New Year's Day commitment, Michael stood in his kitchen looking at the refrigerator note he'd never removed. Savings balance, $0. Age 31. Years saving, 0. Next to it, he taped a new note. Savings balance, $16,800. Age 32. Years saving, 1. Insight: systems beat willpower. Automation beats motivation. Constraints create freedom. Skills deserve direct monetization. Emergency funds buy peace. Comparison can be catalyst. Goals need measurable systems. Next goal: $30,000 by age 33. Same system, proven process, continued compound effect. He smiled at the contrast. 1 year ago, he'd been a 31-year-old with decent income and 0 savings, feeling like a financial failure. Today, he was 32 with nearly $17,000 saved and a proven system that could generate wealth indefinitely. The transformation wasn't about the money, though $16,800 was life-changing compared to 0. The transformation was about discovering he wasn't bad with money or lacking willpower. He'd simply lacked effective systems. Once he'd designed systems that worked with human psychology instead of against it, saving became automatic. 13 years of failure had been erased by 12 months of systematic execution. The person who couldn't save for over a decade had become someone who couldn't stop saving, not through superhuman discipline, but through automated systems that removed human decision-making from the process entirely. Sometimes the difference between failure and success isn't capability. It's having a system that makes the right choice automatic instead of requiring it to be made repeatedly through willpower that eventually depletes. Michael's 0 to 10,000 journey proved that financial transformation is accessible to anyone willing to engineer their environment and income for success rather than relying on motivation that inevitably fails.